Hey everyone, this is Amos Buelow with Poskamore, and today you're going to be watching a live interview that I had with a Christian man who's going to share his testimony of how God brought him to faith, and also what it looks like in his life, what he believes it looks like to be a spiritual leader. So listen, learn, and be encouraged by another Christian man. Welcome everyone, Amos Buelow here, and I'm with Mark, who has volunteered to open up about his faith testimony and what he believes it looks like to be a spiritual leader and how that's happening in his life. So, Mark, thank you for being here. I'm just going to
Thank
kind of
you.
lead the questions and then hand it over to you to speak wisdom into our hearts. So, first of all, who are you and what do you do? And tell us a little bit about more about than just your job, but what do you enjoy doing, type of things.
Oh, well, my name is Mark Walkins. I'm a professional driver. I'm a auto transporter. Basically, I cover all 48 states. I'm married. We have a stepson. My wife's name is Melissa, and the stepson's son, his name is Charles. Um, both great people. They're my anchors. They keep me grounded. Um, but I like reading. I love to read. I have a Audible account, and I just that's what I do when I drive. I listen to Audible, and it's almost like going to school while I'm working. It's a learning experience. You learn so much of the different authors and things like that. I love to read and spend time on my computer, doing working through Facebook, um, trying to spread the good news. Um, and My stepson has gotten me into gaming.
Sure.
I used to do it when I was younger, but I gotten out of it, and now he's just kind of he's been edge chipping away at me for the last few years, and I finally gave into the temptations.
Sure. Is he
and
living with you guys?
Yeah, he just turned 20, so hopefully he'll be gone soon.
Yeah.
Get
Well,
on his own.
at least you guys get to do that together right now. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. He's a pretty good kid. He's
Awesome.
pretty good.
Well, that's great that you're using, I mean, the similar platform as me to spread the good news. And that's why I'm
Yeah.
excited to talk to you more too. So it's going back to the beginning, wherever the beginning was for you. Can you tell us about how God brought you to faith and what that whole story is like?
Well, I was born in, well, I wasn't born, well, yeah, I was born and raised in a church for a long time. It's almost, you hear this story a lot. Um, Raised in a church, you go to church every Sunday, go to every Wednesday, and, then you become a teenager and slowly you kind of drift off a little bit and a little bit more. And then you get out of high school and you start uh, getting more out into the world, and then you kind of drift a little bit more. Um, when I was growing up, I had uh, I guess you could say a pretty sheltered life. My parents did their best to kind of keep me uh, out of the world. Um, as far as rock and roll music and things that they would consider uh, stuff that would lead me astray.
Mhm.
And then ultimately I ended up doing it anyways, and that lasted for about like 30 years, give or take. I had nothing to do with church, and I never doubted God, even when I wasn't faithful. Um, and then about 4 years ago, I was driving down the interstate, and I used to listen to Howard Stern all the time, and they were playing best ofs, and I heard them all. So I tried to find a different station on my Sirius radio, and oddly enough, I came across Joel Osteen, and I really didn't want to listen to that either, because at the time, even before, I really wasn't a fan of televangelism,
Mhm.
but something told me to listen. And so I just did. And it was like God was just speaking to me through him, through Joel. And I mean, it was almost like it was scripted, because it was talking about the problems in my life that I was going through. I'd been homeless. I lost everything.
Wow.
I was living um, outside in the streets. There'd be times I'd spend times uh, in those big, those big cement storm drains that you see.
Sure.
Um, there's a factory that had them. They were all stacked up on top of each other. I'd sleep up like on the third one because I didn't want animals and all that stuff. you know, um, it was really a humbling experience, and God was just touching my heart and telling me, to come back. He's still there. He still loves me. He, he's willing to forgive me, and there's a plan. So I was broken at that time. I was just so broken that I had, I just said, yeah, you know, um, I just broke down. I was going down the road driving, just bawling like a baby. I was just bawling, bawling, bawling.
Yeah.
And for the next couple of weeks, just messages, everything I listened to was just speaking to me, touching me, and I was able to resonate with it. And it was just so, um, it was such a release of stress, of pain, of everything. I could not have felt any more on top of the world than I did then,
Mm-hmm.
because, I had such a peace in my heart. I just, um, the world could have crashed down around me and I would have been like, okay, you know, um, there was just stress to me. It was um, non-existent, because I knew God had it all. I knew that he had me in his hand, and nothing bad was going to happen, no matter what. No matter what. I mean, I came across a lot of the problems, and I was like, it's all good. God's got it.
Yeah.
That was the trust that I had in him. At that, right then, at that point, it was rock solid, hardcore, and man, I was on fire, because I could talk to people about God, no problem, in any conversation, any person, anytime. It just, you know, uh, and people were like, wow, because I could just so easily acquaint, I can insert it into any conversation, and it was so smooth, and it just like it was almost like it wasn't, they weren't my words,
Yeah.
and oftentimes I'm like, did I say that? Because the conversation that I had seemed like I just didn't. I never had that kind of conversation. Those kind of words never came out of my mouth before, and it just seemed so fluent, and it just took me back, and it was cool, because I was like, wow, he did that.
Yeah.
It wasn't me, it was him. And so it flowed, and people commented to me about it, of how peaceful you seem. You have this calming sense about you, and um, I just kept saying, man, it's not me, it's him. It's all him. And uh, anyways, that went on, and I started to come across some things in my life where uh, I would come into trouble situations of stress, and people would say things about me and stuff like that, and it just starts to build. It started to build up, and I was noticing one time, like I would spend a lot of time reading in the Bible, and I would keep a journal of the scripture that I was reading and how it related to me and what I thought about it. And I noticed that every time I stopped, put the book down, walk away to go do something, it felt like I was stepping out of a bubble, because instantly almost, um, it was like I'd get attacked. Um, Someone would pick an argument with me, uh, anything to try to upset my joy or my peace, whatever I had. It was just constant barrage of negativity, and I would just turn right around and run back in, into that bubble, because that's where I felt safe. But it never ended, and I knew that the enemy would be coming for me, because I had such a strong faith, and I would just constantly daily face things that would just try to chip away at that faith. And sometimes I would feel like it was working, where I would just say, why am I doing this? How is this happening? Just a month ago, nothing could faze me. And now here I am, just getting bombarded by everything. And I just was like, I couldn't handle it. And I wasn't putting my trust in God. I didn't have my faith in God, because I couldn't see how this could be happening if he's supposed to be looking out for me. And so there'd be times where I'd fall. I would just take a step back. And it wouldn't be long after where I would kind of, I guess, snap out of it and realize what's really happening, that this is the enemy that's chipping away at my faith. Get back up and get back into the fight, because if you don't, you're going to lose. So that's what I did. I would grab the Bible again, and I would read it. I would talk to God, and I'd pray, and just not give up. So many people give up, especially after it's such a long barrage. It's day in, day out, of constant battle. It can be easy for people, I think, to give up, but I know that God has a plan for me in my life, and I want to fulfill that.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, giving up isn't an option. I can't just walk away,
Sure.
because he didn't walk away. He gave his life for us.
Mm-hmm.
So who am I to just walk away?
Right, and he had all the freedom to walk away, but he didn't. He chose not to. And as we have the freedom to choose to walk away. Okay, so this is awesome, your story, and this, we're getting some context now as to what's happening presently, what happened in the past, but what's happening presently with, okay, what do you do when you're getting attacked constantly, daily? The devil and the evil of this world are trying to chip away at your faith and at your spirit and pull you away. And you're giving us some good things. First, you gotta not give up. You can't give up, and you gotta choose to keep going through it. Fight back, and be in his word. Go back to his word, because that's where you find protection and armor. So yeah, I love all that. And you're talking about that personal struggle and choice that you have to walk in his ways. Now, I wanted to ask a question. What do you think it looks like to be a spiritual leader, whether you're doing it or not, but what do you think it looks like for a Christian man to be a spiritual leader as well for themselves, but for their wife and a family, for your kid, at work and in your day-to-day life? What do you believe that looks like for a Christian man?
To be a spiritual leader, um, I heard one time that the men of the house are like the pastors of the house, you know, and I agree with it. It's up to us to set an example, to set the bar at a certain level, um, and not just set it and expect it, your wife, your kids, co-workers to rise up to that bar. You should do it also.
Mm.
I think that being a leader of any sort is a person that isn't above anybody else. I would see myself as an equal, because I'm in this with you. We should be able to handle stressful situations, um, and not necessarily show it that it's getting to you. You know, um, kind of having that strength, um, that strength like vibe, I guess you could say. uh, and also like at work, not gossiping about a coworker, or down talking to somebody else. You got to try and set a good example. Um, you know, go the extra mile in everything that you do to try to just to try to be the best that you can. Um, I heard once, that you should, at the job, you should have it so that people miss you if you're not there.
Hmm.
Um, because you go above and beyond. And doing that, I think, that is a testament to who you are as a Christian. It makes you not like a slacker, someone who only does half the job, or, you want to do the best that you can. And it gives God the glory, because you're doing the best that you can. I just think being a humble person is probably one of the better qualities to have as a leader and a spiritual leader. Putting God first, and not being afraid to talk about it.
Mm. Yeah.
Even at work, I do it all the time. Something's going wrong or something like that. Hey, you know what? Just leave it in God's hands. He'll see us through.
Mm.
Whatever's going on right now, just let it go. Um, everything happens for a reason. Nothing's a coincidence. It may seem bad right now, but for all we know, there might be something even better that's going to happen.
Right.
And it couldn't, because this happened,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Sure. I wanted to pull out, so what the first thing you said, this is all really good stuff. Having that humility, setting the standard. But the first thing you said specifically for the family. So yeah, set that standard in the household for your wife, for your kids, and for yourself. And then not only setting it, but living to that standard yourself, living that out
Right.
as an equal partner in that relationship. But Can you give a little bit more specifics on, okay, now what does that standard look like in the day-to-day life for a Christian man?
Just being open with God in front of your wife, in front of your kids, to spend time, pray together. That I think that would be a great thing. A family that prays together stays together.
Mm.
You know, and just to be a reminder to your wife or to your kids, to trust in God, to pray, and just keep God in your mind at all times. People, sometimes my wife and son, they'll butt heads about something, and I'll be going down the road and I'll get a phone call from one of them, explaining what's going on. I can hear one or the other in the background, and I just, hey, just calm down, hold up, think about this, and the famous words, what would Jesus do? And I kind of thought that was kind of a corny thing at first, but when you think about it, it actually isn't. That's actually a pretty good deal,
Yeah.
pretty good line, because you stop and you think about it. What would Jesus do?
Right. Takes the focus off yourself and resets it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it makes them stop and go, oh, okay, well, now, like you said, it takes the focus off them, and it makes you feel kind of petty because, what you're doing is really stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just try to base it all around God. Everything and anything is around him, because that's where you're going to find all of your answers.
Yes, absolutely. That was really good advice. I like that a lot. Being open with your family. It's like talking about God and talking to them about God, being open with your family and making him the focus and the number one priority. That's
Yes, definitely.
well put, very well put. Okay, so now we have a little bit clearer idea of, okay, what does it look like to you for a Christian man to be a spiritual leader? Now, what do you think stops men, Christian men specifically, from doing all these things? Or what are their reasons for not following through on these things that you were talking about?
Well, I can't really speak to all men, but like for me, and I guess it can go for some, because we're all men and we all pretty much act the same.
Sure.
For me, it's being stubborn, wanting to do things our way, because we believe that we know best. And sometimes we don't. Our intentions may be well, but we don't put our trust in God that he'll take care of whatever is going on in his timing. Right. And in his way, not our way or our timing, and I think a lot of times it's when we do things our own way, it's like jumping down a rabbit hole, and the further you dig, the worse it's going to get. It never fails for me. I think that, in some certain situation where I wanted something to happen and I want it to happen right now, and I'm bound and determined, I'm like a honey badger, I will just bang my head into that wall repeatedly, because it's going to break sooner or later. But what I never realize is there's a big beam right behind the wall that it keeping it from breaking,
Right.
and I'm busting my head. But because I'm stubborn, I'm going to keep doing it. And in the meantime, all you had to do is turn it over to God, and you just had to move over 3 inches or a foot, and you could keep walking. And but I just think pride. I think pride is a big thing for men. That stops us because we're men. I've been humbled way too much to let that get in the way anymore. Like in arguments or something like that. Say I get in an argument with my wife. Instead of escalating it because I think I'm right or I know I'm right, I just, I can feel it inside of me. I can feel that tension building, and it's just and frustration, and I just catch it and stomp it back down because I know that it's not going to go anywhere but south. So I just de-escalate, and in a calm way, like just explain yourself and more or less neutralize the situation by saying, this is the way I feel. I could be wrong. I'm willing to listen to what you have to say instead of my way or the highway.
Sure.
And I think that that kind of goes along with being a Christian, because it's kind of the same thing with us and God. You get in that argument with God, like, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to go talk to him, kind of like Jonah going to Nineveh, and I guess it's kind of the same with the wife too. She's often right. And I end up going back to do what like Jonah, I end up going back anyways. So, so yeah, I just, I think we get in our own way, I guess would sum it up.
Okay. Yeah. You pulled out two really big things then for guys that you've seen in yourself and some other guys maybe as well, is the pride and stubbornness. Okay. And you, it was awesome. You actually walked us through, the process of working through stubbornness as, hey, just turn this over to God, and also change your perspective. There might be a beam behind where you're trying to break through, or
Right.
just go 3 inches to the right where God's leading you. Be open to what he's telling you, and then you can break through that. And then the pride, being humble. Okay. And humility takes the form of, hey, maybe I'm wrong, admitting that. And again, letting God's will be done and saying, hey, you probably know better than I do. Is there any other advice you would give to someone? Like, how would a man who has pride, how would you tell him to be humble or learn humility?
It's something that I think that it's learned. Basically, for me, it was just, immediately when I wake up in the morning, thank God for the day. Thank God you had a great night's sleep. Always keep God first. When you wake up and throughout the day before you go to sleep, it's putting God before you. Make yourself last. Be a servant. Be a servant to God. Be a servant to your wife, to your kids, to your friends, to your co-workers. Just give of yourself freely, because then you're not giving to yourself. God's going to take care of you because you're taking care of them. So I think that would be the best thing. For some, it might be easier said than done because, you know, they've been this way for so long. It's what they know. And that's a tough shell to crack. And that just goes back to not giving up. You know, um, you're not going to be able to do that overnight. You're not going to be able to just start giving of yourself to everybody and anybody, and you know, just like tomorrow morning when you wake up. You know, it's not going to happen. But realize that you can keep doing it. You can start all over again. Every day's a new day.
Yeah.
You know, just because you messed up today, well, God willing, tomorrow you start all over again. So that's what I think the best thing to do. Just
Sure.
giving of yourself.
That was perfect. And what you just said at the end there as well of, hey, it's not going to happen right away. And you might have to start over and over again, but it's a learned process. And I'm glad you said that, because I was speaking to a gentleman the other day, and he was stuck in apathy of wanting to change, because basically it was a fear of, hey, if I change, I'm just going to fall back into the same cycle. I know I'm going to fail. And so he just didn't want to change anymore. It's like, well, I'm going to fail anyways. But it's that process and not giving up. Be a man, not giving up, but realize that when you serve, you're acting in a Christ-like manner.
Yeah, and it's also, just because you're giving of yourself, you're being a servant, doesn't mean that you can't take on that warrior mentality. Because what does a warrior do? They serve. They're serving something. They're serving a cause, and you have to fight for that. It's nothing comes easy. God never said it's going to be easy.
Right.
And when you're fighting for that cause, you know, that's building you up. That's making you stronger for the next time and the next time, and it gets easier. You know, I still go through a lot of battles and daily things, but it's not as difficult as it was before.
Yeah.
Because, you know, my faith is stronger now. I put my trust in God. So, you know, it's not easy. But it does get better.
Yeah.
You know.
Good. Yeah. Good advice. Does get better. Here we have evidence of a Christian man saying it does get better. So we appreciate you for that. Well, to wrap it up, is there anything that you are planning on taking from this? You know, is there an action step you'd like to give yourself in order to push against stubbornness or pride, or follow through in a way that's maybe been calling to you?
Oh boy.
And it can just be one, not to overwhelm yourself, you know?
Well, basically, if you can take this whole thing and wrap it up into a ball, that's what I take from it. Because, you know, for me, getting to talk about it and sharing it with people, it makes me kind of look at it from another angle somehow.
Sure.
And I can see maybe where I'm could be doing something else, or it just strengthens what I already know, and it kind of a reassurance that I'm doing good. But I think that above it all, and I've seen this, I've felt it, I've lived it, man. You keep God first. That is, to me, that has been amazing. You keep God first every day, all day, and you get in the Word, because if you don't know the Word, you're going to be lost. And be prayerful. You know, talk to God. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be some huge theatrical prayer. You know, oh Lord, thou. You know, all that stuff. Just talk to Him.
Yeah.
Just talk to Him. Just like just how we talk, and you'd be surprised. And if you don't hear anything back, just remember that saying, you know, when you're taking a test, the teacher's always quiet. So
Yeah, good. That's a good saying. And
mhm.
our God is a quiet God. He speaks in whispers,
Yes.
and he's
And
not a theatrical God, and so why would we pray in a theatrical way? And
right. One other thing that I wanted to touch on, what you had just mentioned, he's not a quiet God, he whispers. And people wonder, well, how come he doesn't, you know, how come he whispers like that? Or, you know, that small, still voice. He whispers because he's right next to you. He's
ah,
with you. He doesn't have to yell.
beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. It made my hair stand up. He's here. He's here with us right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, so much good content here. I pray that a lot of Christian men watch this and can benefit from it,
I hope
especially
so.
just hearing from different men who are walking on this journey towards our heavenly home and the hope that we have to all come together in the end. So I appreciate
Yeah.
you. And again, yeah.
I appreciate you too. I hope that I really hope it helps people out, you know, to know that they're not alone, and
Right.
that God just would reach out to people and touch them through these things that you do.
And your things as
So.
well. Yeah.